When Ethan Clarke moved to London, he didn't have much. A suitcase, a camera, and a dream of becoming a filmmaker. The city felt too big, too cold, but he managed to find a small studio flat above an antique bookstore on Holloway Road. It wasn't perfect, the walls were thin, the plumbing old, but it was cheap, and something about its charm made him sign the lease immediately. The landlord, a quiet woman named Mrs. Ellery, handed him the keys with a strange look in her eyes. "You'll be fine up there," she said, forcing a smile. "Just don't use the mirror after midnight." Ethan laughed, thinking she was joking. London landlords said stranger things. The first few nights passed quietly. Ethan spent his time unpacking, setting up his camera gear, and filming test shots around the city. But something about the flat unsettled him. The air felt heavy, the light bulbs flickered, and that old mirror on the bedroom wall, the one carved into the wood paneling, always seemed colder than the rest of the room. On the fifth night, he noticed something strange. When he passed by the mirror, his reflection didn't move exactly as he did. It was subtle, a fraction of a second delay, but real. He blinked, shook his head, and blamed exhaustion. That night, he couldn't sleep. From behind the wall, he heard faint scratching, like nails dragging across wood. Then, a soft voice whispered his name. Ethan. He jumped from bed, turned on the lamp, and saw nothing. The mirror, however, had fogged slightly, though the room was freezing cold. On the glass, someone had written with a finger, "Let me in." Ethan's heart pounded. He grabbed his phone and recorded it, hoping it was some condensation trick. When he checked the footage, the words weren't visible, but a shadow was standing behind him. The next morning, he rushed downstairs to the antique shop. The owner, an old man with a trembling voice, looked at him carefully when Ethan mentioned the flat. "You're staying in number 7, aren't you?" the man asked quietly. Ethan nodded. "Don't stay long. That mirror isn't what it seems. It belonged to a woman named Ada Ellery, the landlord's sister. She disappeared in 1983. People say her spirit's trapped in that glass." Ethan laughed nervously. "That's just a story." The man's eyes were dead serious. "Then why did the last 3 tenants vanish?" That night, Ethan couldn't stop staring at the mirror. He decided to film an experiment. He set up his camera to record the reflection overnight, curious to see what might happen. At 3:12 a.m., he woke to the sound of his own voice, whispering, but he wasn't speaking. It came from the mirror. His reflection was moving on its own, lips twisting, saying something he couldn't understand. The lights flickered again, and for 1 second, the reflection grinned a wide, unnatural grin before reaching toward the glass. Ethan panicked, covering the mirror with a blanket. The next morning, the blanket was gone, the mirror was spotless. He checked his footage. The recording showed him asleep, but then something impossible. His reflection stood up, stepped out of the mirror, and walked out of frame. He stopped the video immediately. He tried to leave the flat, but the door wouldn't open. The key turned endlessly. The windows were sealed. His phone lost signal. For 2 days he was trapped. He shouted from the window, but no one heard. On the 3rd night, he stopped seeing his reflection at all. The mirror showed only the room empty, even when he stood right in front of it. That morning, the landlord came upstairs to check on him. The flat was empty. Ethan's camera was still running, battery dead. When she reviewed the footage, the last thing it captured was him standing before the mirror, saying softly, "I understand now." Then he stepped forward and vanished into the glass. Mrs. Ellery sighed and whispered, "I told you not after midnight." She covered the mirror with a sheet and locked the room again. A month later, a new tenant moved in, a young woman named Clara. When she unpacked, she smiled at the beautiful old mirror in her room. She took a selfie in front of it, her first night in her new London flat. In the photo, behind her shoulder, stood Ethan, smiling. Every story hides a truth. And the next one might find you. Subscribe before the light goes out.